This is the ISG Digital Dish.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Dish.
I'm Lois Coatney, and I lead the development of a new collaboration platform.
I'm Jeannie Cuff. I implement tools to help customers understand their digital environment.
And I'm Julie Fernandez. I work with clients trying to improve all aspects of their HR and people development.
We're a group of women who work for a global digital firm, ISG, and we've created a new podcast, Digital Dish, which explores what it means to be a woman in the digital world.
Our goal is to create a space for women's voices and experiences in digital.
All right, here we are again. Vacation, summer. Thanks for joining. We have Julie and Lois. It's always fun to talk to you guys, even when we're on vacation. I don't mind.
You're on vacation. I'm just jealous you're on vacation. I haven't taken mine yet because I can't go anywhere, so I'm jealous.
I know. So we have a pretty interesting interview today, and it's really about data. I'm really interested in data because that's what I work in every day with our GovernX tool. Because I think data gives us a whole bunch of information about how can we manage things better? How can we improve our processes? How can we track and make sure we're handling third-party risk and all the data points, as well as make sure you get the full value for your money. GovernX, obviously, our tool is one of the things that does it, but you need that data, and that all came out of that need. How do we use that data? So that's why I thought it was so interesting to have this interview about data with Caitlin Bigsby.
Yeah, well, COVID, just think about how we live today. We're all glued to what's happening with number of cases and where are we having hotspots across the globe. And data has been, I think, for all of us, just really important to understand what's happening around us. Like you said, in our line of work, we work with large providers and large enterprise clients, and they've had to adjust so much over the last 3 months. And the only way they knew, to make some really big decisions about how they operate, how they work, where they work, how their client environment or their customer environment is changing, they needed data. And data has become such an incremental part of, just really what we're relying on. We're all working out of our home offices, and how do we know what's happening in the world around us? But it's really having access to that data.
Right.
Yeah, and so data, that's just an interesting topic for me as an HR practitioner, because I'm not sure that HR folks are reputed for being, good data jockeys, right? Or having the natural inclination. We're such people persons that, it almost feels at times like it's really hard to find the people person who is also, kind of a data geek and likes to dig into data and try to figure out what it's saying. I also feel like in HR, data and data analytics has been this holy grail, right? And it's been the promise of new technologies, generation after generation of technology. So, we're going to get to the point where we have analytics and dashboards and, we have insights and intelligence around people. Do we ever really get there? What are the challenges that keep us from getting there? And now more than ever, folks are focused on people who've been disrupted in our organizations. So I just think that's fun.
Yeah. I mean, Caitlin talks specifically about HR data, but I think what Lois and you are saying is that first of all, it takes a lot of work to get that, but also there's a lot of examples. I mean, she gives examples that are related to HR, but and she talks about learning and things like that, but it's harder than you think. And I think that's the challenge for everybody.
Yeah. So great point, Jeannie. As we turn it over to you and and Caitlin to have the interview, if folks aren't familiar, you'll hear HCM, as a term being tossed out there. It's human capital management, or you might hear her then, dig into learning or people analytics, right? That's her lens on this thing, and take it away, and then we'll have some discussion shortly after as well.
Great. All right, everybody, look forward to you can hear the interview with Caitlin Bigsby from Visier. When we're talking about digital impact, so I know you said, what are the changes that you think will have the most impact on what your work is?
Well, are working for an analytics company, an HCM analytics company, the constant digitalization of HCM has completely, it hasn't necessarily transformed how people do business yet, but it has started to create an incredible wealth of potential that is untapped.
Are you thinking about data scientists and things like that and analysts? Because I've been looking at that a lot. And I'm not even in the HR area, but I think there's an enormous amount of data out there.
Huge.
And so how do you feel like that companies need to tackle that?
So I think what's going to change most is that we need to, or what should change, we need to stop thinking about data.
Data is the product.
Or the byproduct, more to the point.
Okay.
So what's happened with this digitalization, and I've been in HCM for over 20 years, I was an implementation consultant, so I actually, went on site, got people, first with PeopleSoft, and later with Saba, And the focus was always about how can we be more efficient.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, in the process of doing so, we are creating records. We are creating data.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of data.
Lots of data.
Massive amounts.
But we're not thinking about it as its own thing of value. There was always questions like, oh, can I report on that?
Some companies do.
They do.
But they're more using it, they're just clear marketing companies while you're looking at it.
I'm looking at it from an HCM point of view. So I think that's a big distinction, I think. You'll see it in marketing finance. Yeah.
So I think that's an important distinction. I'm sorry, I wanted to bring it up.
You're quite right.
Okay.
In the HCM world, there was, I want to do this thing faster, or I want to push this responsibility out. And the digital trail allows me to confirm that it's done or report to regulators. But what needs to shift now is actually mining it for the value that it offers. And actually in mining it, I think it's going to shape, again, it's going to come full circle, and it's going to shape the way we collect data to start with. Yeah, and I can give you a quick example if you want me to keep going.
Because and this is the thing is I feel like, some companies get that data and then use it to just push product and things too. What you're talking about is changing the workplace, right?
Understanding and changing
the way we work. And I think that's and so help me understand what that's about.
Well, so I'll give you a really good example from my past. I spent over 10 years at Saba, which just recently acquired by Cornerstone, so learning management solution. So what we would see there in terms of data as the byproduct was people were measuring learning success based on how many people took the course. So that is how many completions do I have in my system? What were the scores of the evaluations? And if we had a safety incident on site, could I prove that everybody who needed to take safety training took safety training?
Right.
That was kind of the extent of it.
And you could, all of that,
you could do
Oh my God, I'm having a flashback of my days of supporting Cornerstone and implementing it. Got it, okay.
So that was the past, but what we could look at it in the future is what about, is there a connection between attending training and being productive? And I used to say this to my learning clients way back when we were talking about social learning, which is harder to measure. You can't measure completions of social learning. It doesn't exist. But I said the goal of any learning, whether it's a classroom with a test or a forum or whatever, is to change behavior, is to make people more productive or reduce negative incidents. So bringing together the completions with that kind of business information gives you a much different perspective than just 95% of our employees did training, full stop.
Right. So that's I'm sorry, I'm just like, I'm not even on talking podcast time. I'm like going, okay, so that is something that it's hard to measure because I'm a really data-driven person.
Yeah.
How do you see that being able to be measured?
You've got to bring in a bunch of different things. So you can't just live in your Cornerstone system data. You can't just live in your HRIS system.
Say, okay, this is done, box checked.
Yeah. So let's take an example of safety data.
Right.
If the goal of safety learning is to reduce the incidence of safety incidents on site, then what you want to look at is you want to bring your information from your case management system.
Right.
You want to look at your absenteeism, your attendance, who's missing work because they were injured, your overtime system, who had to cover shifts and do work overtime and correlate all of that to safety training. Now, I can't say for sure that because Bob took safety, Bob is now a safe guy. But if I can say it's, site A that has 95% attendance and completion and scores has a lower rate of incidents and a lower rate of overtime due to injury than site B, where they're at 75%, that's a really strong indicator that my safety training has an impact.
So bringing this back to the digital tools, do you have a tool or the ability to do that now?
Yeah, absolutely.
You do.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
And so if we go back to, our data is a gold mine, but we're not using it properly. You've got your attendance and safety training over here in your LMS. And exactly, you've got your learning. Now, you can do this with a data warehouse or a data lake. It's a lot of work, pretty time consuming, but we do have a solution that allows you to do that. So that's just really one example. And I think another example outside of the learning area and into talent acquisition, I think I see talent acquisition, TA, recruiting, all that, really kind of the wild, wild west of HCM technology. It's a free for all. Everybody's doing it differently. The war on talent has everybody grasping at straws, doing new things. But we see there is really, or what we certainly saw at our organization when we took a look at our recruiting history, we were terrible at record keeping. We were jumping through our hoops of just opening and requisitions and closing them on the same day just to get them done. There was no sense.
So you already had someone in it.
We already had somebody in it. We were just, we had to do it in order to advance to the next step. And so looking at the data, we can't, there's not enough data here for us to work with. We need to go back and change our processes and now bring the processes through. Then we can start to see things like, which of our managers are good at hiring.
So what is the change that needs to happen culturally to get people on board with this? Is that a challenge? I would think for you with the product, that would be a challenge to get people on board with that.
It is, because we're again, it's a couple of different areas. One, there's a cultural challenge within HR itself. HR, the old adage, nobody goes into HR because they like math. Or numbers, and so there's sort of a reactive, oh God, this is scary, I don't want to do this. There is, unfortunately, HR is also very underserved by IT. IT is, puts them at the bottom of the list in terms of priorities. Yeah, really, really hard. And there's also this idea that somehow that what HR doesn't impact the bottom line.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
Well, that's not true.
And some of that is the fact that, again, going back to how we're collecting and data is the byproduct rather than the intent, leads to sloppy habits.
See, this is so interesting to me because I have found that everything I've been hearing about data analytics and all how to do it is all with HR. But every HR department I've looked at, not every, but I have some experience, aren't using the data. I'm like, well, why do they have all that good stuff then if they're not analyzing it and giving that information and sharing it with the business? Because
they don't look at it that way. Like I said, they are looking at streamlining workflows, doing self-service,
getting succession, doing learning, checking all the boxes.
They're not looking at the wealth of information they have at their disposal, and they're not given the tools to do it.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah, I feel like that.
If there is a big, analytics is a top priority for CEOs and CIOs, but it's not prioritizing workforce analytics. And furthermore, even if they do, this is the other thing too. That's a huge challenge. Is workforce analytics, workforce data is incredibly complicated. More so than any other business data out there. I was at a conference. Actually, I've been at this conference. I've gone 3 times now over the last year, and every time it's a people workforce analytics conference. And every time I say, "How many of you came from somewhere else, from finance, from marketing, or whatever?" A good 75% of them raise their hands. And I said, "How many of you were shocked to discover how much harder HR data was?" Those same hands all go up. Yeah, they all think, I did finance. This will be a piece of cake. It's HR. How hard can it be?
It's hard.
It's really hard. Which
is why they're probably not doing it as efficiently as they could. They're not utilizing the data.
Well, exactly. HR doesn't, if you're an HR person, you don't know where to start. If you're an analytics person, you are actually, honestly, a little flummoxed.
And you're speaking a different language to the HR people.
Yeah.
That's what I have found in the past. HR people are like, we're not technical, so that's why they go into it. And it's like, no, this has to be driven by technical. You need to get the skills, and you don't have to be coding. You need to be tech adjacent.
Yeah.
and understand what you're doing.
Yeah, on the HR side, the skills that are needed are the ability to understand how things are connected, what the relationship is between things, and on the analytics side, the analytic person coming in needs to understand too that they're looking at something very different. And just to give you an example for people who are thinking, really, what's the big deal? Well, think about a classic finance transaction. You've got an open requisition for an item. You open it, you buy it, you pay it, you close it. Moving on. All of that could last.
Maybe you accrue it, something like.
Yeah, but
there's only like 5 or 6 processes
exactly.
you have to worry about.
Limited number of actions, limited amount of time.
Right.
Think about a person.
Right.
I'm hired.
Well, I'm recruited.
Recruited.
I'm hired.
Exactly. Recruited. Hired.
Pay and compensation's tied into it.
I've taken training. I've had manager changes. I've had organization changes. I get paid every 2 weeks.
I want to increase. I want to change my position. I want to do something different. I could have the same company and have 5 positions.
Yeah. Exactly. My previous organization, I was there for 12 years. I had, I don't know how many different managers, different jobs. I mean, me as an object, if you equate me to that requisition, had hundreds, thousands maybe, transactions associated with me over a long period of time.
Right.
So that's been the other challenge, and it's one of the reasons why I think HR analytics is where we're opening up and seeing that sort of pre-built opportunity, because it is complicated, and you need domain expertise to build it.
Is there a way to simplify it for your clients? Have you been seeing that?
Yeah, we've been really focusing on making it really accessible for end users, HR business partners, managers, and the like, because we really strongly believe that the CHRO can really push incredible change and steer incredible change with the knowledge at their disposal. And actually, I read recently, going back to women in digital, I believe last week or a couple weeks ago, an article in the paper that was talking about that there is starting to be a creep in this recognition of the power of the people in the business and HR. And as a result, some of these sort of more business elements of HR are being hived off and masculinized. They're actually being taken over. So HR, the core people-serving functions of HR remain sort of female-dominated. And they were projecting that as people analytics rises in popularity, it too, you'll start to see that more masculine. And I have to say, of our customers who would have a title of chief, data analytics or director of people analytics, most of them are men. It is still very masculine.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting thought.
So it's an opportunity for women.
I think so. I think it's a real opportunity for women.
To really step up.
To step up and step into the that leadership role. Again, this actually the same article said that the traits that make a really good CEO are also what make a really great CHRO.
Okay, hi everyone, this is Julie and I'm here with Lois Coatney, and we thought we'd talk a little bit about the interview that we just heard from Caitlin on big data.
Yeah, I don't know. It was it's a little bit of a different topic. We haven't really talked about data yet, but it's becoming, it has been, a big topic when you think about digital, but I think it's important to, what we do every day is becoming, larger than life sometimes.
For sure. Lois, I heard what she was saying, and, she seemed to issue a little bit of a challenge saying, stop thinking about the data that you can collect and instead ask what's valuable to know. And I thought that was interesting. And then she even followed it up with a how-to tip. And, what I heard in that was just change the data equation. So if you've always looked at measures and said, hey, learning success equals, completed trainings, maybe that's not the right equation to use,
Yeah.
Maybe we should be looking at different inputs or different sources or different results. And the question is really, am I upskilling my people for new delivery model or digital experience? Or, maybe it's not really about counting course completions anymore.
Yeah, well, I think that's becoming more important now. I mean, just my own, challenge, or as we're all thinking as leaders in this new world of working at home. I mean, I'm challenged with everybody's working out of their house, and are they working more hours than they used to? It feels like we're being more productive because I feel like we spend so much more time, quality time together, because we're not on the road, we're not on airplanes, we're not driving into work. But then I worry, is it because
they're just putting in 12-hour days instead of the 10-hour days or the 8-hour days that they used to. And I feel like now's the time to really use data to make some decisions. I think our work styles are changing and they will continue to change. So what are ways that we should be looking at data to understand how we can help equip ourselves and our teams to be able to work more effectively in today's environment? And so asking the right questions, that I think was the key. If we just look at the number of hours people are working, that's not the right thing. It's probably more about, do they have the right tools available to them to be able to work effectively? Do they want to work not just a straight 8 hours? Do they want to work at different parts of the day? And does that work more effectively for them? I think there's ways that we need to think about how we use data to, kind of chart the path for how we're working into the future.
I agree. And what is the right question? That's a whole area, right? But then do we even have the right things to measure it? So if we decide we want to measure, kind of productivity or something other than number of hours, or number of courses completed or whatever it is, that's easily measured, I think that just raises a whole lot of new challenges to the organization around, how do I measure the thing that is even valuable to me? Is it new softwares and apps and, things? There's a lot of buzz, especially as the environment changes to, very specialized types of tools to do tracking or to get at the things that we want to know. And it's opening up new doors, it feels like, whole new avenues.
Yeah, and I think that's where she talked about culture. She talked about a culture change that is potentially needed, potentially in HR, but also in finance and procurement, and really everything that we do. We need to start looking at some of those new models, new capabilities, new tools to help us change the way that we operate. And data, I think, is critical to help us understand those and how to utilize those more effectively. I think, all of us need to be data experts in some way, shape, or form, right? We need to be able to figure out how we're going to utilize it, how we're going to gain access to it, how we're going to ask the right questions. And I think that just takes a culture shift in today's environment.
Yeah, for sure. As the HR people guy on our team, I definitely relate to the idea that the person that is the perfect HR people person isn't always the same guy that's a good data jockey or data cruncher. They're almost diametrically opposed personalities, so finding those magical people that have both aspects is a challenge, but it is bigger than HR. And what I'm seeing a lot of times in the HR world that I believe applies everywhere is, just mindset shifts from pushing data out to consuming and pulling data forward. I mean, that has to happen everywhere. We're not creating and distributing reports and creating routines that send things all over the place, but fundamentally changing the way that people work in their environment so that they have curiosity and they have information at their disposal and they can, seek out answers to whatever that is through dashboards or drill downs and different tools. It's a whole different mindset and a whole different skill for everyday employees and managers.
Mm-hmm. It's a comfort level, isn't it? It's a comfort level in knowing access to information is going to help us derive the answers that we need, help us to seek the questions that we need to ask, and to help us find the answers that we need. So, yeah. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about data. It seems very relevant to today. I think that interview was done, a few months ago, actually. I think what Jeannie said, but the way the world is changing, now's the time to really invest and take a look at what we have at our disposal.
Yeah, for sure. There's a number of different areas. Maybe we can explore in some of our future podcasts here. But if you think just about, how does this whole data thing fit with automation? And what does that look like, or what does that do, to speed up or make it easier, or just send us down a different path? Or the other one that I think about a lot is data compliance, right? So a lot of focus on data compliance, data security, data privacy, in just whole new, very big and very important ways. And I think any one of those topics could really be, a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. That needs to be on our list. Let's make sure we write it down on the list. You got it down? I know I'll forget it. I've got too much data in my head. I'm sure I will forget.
There we go. We need a place where we can put all of our head data, right? That'd be a great innovation. Come on, providers, who has something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Save my tiny brain.
Yeah, there we go. Well, good. Well, it was good to chat with you again, Julie. And I think let's put that on our list for a couple of sessions. I think we need to talk about where it's going, where data is going to take us next.
Sounds great. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on ISG Digital Dish. If you like our podcast, subscribe and please rate and review us. Thanks.